Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be doing a tutorial on how to make your color grades, make your edits look like Aspyn Ovard. If you don't know who Aspyn Ovard is, this is their Instagram page. They've got almost 2 million followers. They are a lifestyle vlogger. They Instagram and travel an awful lot. Now, somebody has requested I make them a preset pack, which is the reason why I thought, well, I might as well film a video on how I made one of these presets, and then I'm going to go ahead and create a full pack. And if any of you guys are interested in purchasing this pack, the pack will contain anywhere from 4 to 6 presets, and if you wish to buy it, don't forget you can just buy it by sending me a DM on Instagram. That's Sebastian_JWB, and just saying you want the Aspyn Ovard preset pack, and I'll obviously email that to you. We only accept payments through PayPal, so make sure that you have PayPal. While you're over there, it'd be great if you could follow me and also my brother, which is Matthew_GKB. Drop us both a follow, and you can buy the preset packs from either of us. The photo we're going to be color grading today is of this style. Now you can see here that the colors in Aspyn Ovard's photos are predominantly pink. All of her highlights are very pink. There's a very dominant pink theme with all of her posts. So this is the photo we're going to be trying to edit like today, and this is the photo that we have. Now we are going to have a little bit of difficulty in the fact that the camera that I used to take this photo can't actually pick out as much detail in the shadows as I would have liked. So where you see here the photo is quite bright, we're going to have a little bit of difficulty keeping all of the quality of the image when we brighten up this image, but let's see what we can do with this image. So the first thing we're going to do is we're literally just going to come over to the basic slider, and obviously we want to make sure our image is a lot brighter because at the moment it's completely underexposed. You can see here from the histogram. We want to bring all of this to about the center. So we're going to get the shadows, we're going to just drag those up all the way to the top, and you can see we're starting to get some noise in the image already. However, it's basically fairly evenly exposed now. One thing I am going to do is drag up the whites slider. I'm going to drag down the blacks just to add in a little bit of contrast. You can, if you want to, just increase the exposure just a touch as well, just to bring up the shadows a little bit more, and then if you do think you're overblowing the highlights, just drag down the highlights slider like that. Okay, so now that we've done the basic slider, we want to focus mainly on the colours. As you can see from her images, a lot of them are incredibly soft. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over to the contrast, we're going to drag down the contrast. We don't have much contrast in any of her photos, as you can see if you just look through some of them. So we're just going to drag down the contrast there. We're also going to get the clarity slider, and we're also going to drag that down to not very much, probably about -5. I've dropped that down to -13 there. Now for the vibrance and saturation, you have two choices. One, lift up the saturation and drop down the vibrance, or lift up the vibrance and drop down the saturation. It's just a matter of personal preference for your image. In this case, for Aspyn Ovard, I am indeed going to lower the saturation and increase the vibrance. Okay, that is it for the basic slider. I'm not going to touch the temperature or tint just for now. In fact, actually I think I might just increase the tint to about 20, just because we can then get a little bit more of that magenta pink into the image. In fact, I'm actually going to increase it to +35 around there. We can always come back and change this. So already we're beginning to get the sort of pinks and the lighting that we would like in this image. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is, usually I would go onto the tone curve and just work my way down. I'm going to come to detail, and I'm just going to put on noise reduction. I'm going to drag noise reduction up to 30%. For your images, it may not be the same. As I said at the beginning of the video, my images have a lot of trouble with saving detail from a dark underexposed image. So when I've brought up the exposure, it's actually made the image quite grainy. So I'm just going to put some noise reduction on there. I think 29 is a bit too much, so we're going to leave it at 20. I'm going to leave the sharpening and everything else the same. You can add a little bit of color, noise reduction in there as well. Doesn't really usually do an awful lot. Okay, so that's that done. The next thing I want to do is come onto the tone curve. As you can see from her images, there is a very, very faint fade in the background. If you look in the shadows here and the highlights, if we can compare them to the white background on the Instagram page, you can see the highlights aren't exactly white. They're slightly faded out, and the shadows are also very faintly shaded. So we're going to do that by coming onto our tone curve, clicking once in the middle and once either side like this. You want to keep these straight as you can. We will be messing around with them ever so slightly, but leave them like that. To fade out the highlights, you're just going to drag down here, and to fade out the shadows, you're going to just lift up the bottom like this, and maybe drag it off slightly as well. Not too much, as you can see if I turn off the tone curve, the difference that has made to the overall image. One thing we might want to do is adjust the highlights. You can see if I lift it up, it increases the highlights. If I drag it down, it just makes the highlights slightly darker. I'm going to drag it down so we have a little bit more detail there in the highlights, and I'm going to leave the shadows where they are. I don't want to drop them too much because we're adding too much contrast. So I'm just going to leave that around there. So we've got a very, very faint tone curve. This is where the detail really comes in, is in the color correction in the HSL slider and the split toning. So if we come onto split toning, and I'm just going to increase the saturation in this case to 11%, just so we can kind of see the effect it's having on our image. You can alternatively press Option or Alt on your keyboard and drag the slider along to see what color you think you should add to your highlights. As we can see, pink is the main color we're going for here. So we're going to try and find a pinky sort of mauve color to add to the highlights, and I think plus 331 is probably roughly where we're looking. We can always come back and edit it ever slightly. Okay, actually I'm just going to drag it up to 356 and I'm going to leave it there. As for the shadows, I'm just going to do possibly about the same. I reckon it's going to look good. Maybe slightly more blue in the image if I can. So for the shadows, I'm going to put on 241 and drop the saturation down to about 5. So you can see if I turn off the split toning and turn it on, it just adds that extra pink feel to the image, and you can see that's the sort of look we're going for here. Okay, so if we close the split toning window and we head onto the HSL slider, one thing I want to try and make sure I preserve is the colour of Matthew's skin. I want to make sure that the skin colour, as you can see here, is fairly vibrant and also still fairly orange. So that's where we're going to be using the hue and the saturation slider mainly. Okay, so you can see if I come onto the red slider and I drag it to the right, it's going to make things slightly more greeny orangey. If I drag it to the left, it's going to make the oranges pink. So I'm just going to try and bring back some of those oranges by sliding and playing around with the orange, yellow and red sliders. Okay, so I've not really done an awful lot. I've basically put the red on 22, orange on 5 and the yellow on -18. You won't be able to see a lot of change when I turn off and on the HSL slider, but it's going to slightly bring back that actual proper skin tone colour. Next thing I want to do is come down to the saturation, and you can see here her greens are slightly desaturated and also fairly bright. So we're going to come down to the saturation, we're going to get the greens and yellows, and we're just going to drop the saturation down on both of those, messing around to see where it is the proper place. We're then going to scroll down to the luminance, and we're going to just increase the luminance of the yellow and increase the luminance of the green. Okay, the next big thing that's going to make a difference is if we come to the purple slider and we drag the purple slider up to about +57. All that's going to do is make the purples a little bit more obvious. Actually, I think that's a bit too much. I might drag it up to +37 simply because I don't want the shirt to look too pink. You can see again, if I turn off the HSL slider, turn it back on again, how much difference that makes to the pinks. I will come down to the saturation, and I think it's slightly oversaturating the pinks and purples, so I'm going to drag that down in both the purple and magenta sliders ever so slightly, not too much, so as not to lose the pink colour completely. I'm then going to come to the luminance slider and drag up the purple slider to +50 and the magenta slider to about +24. I think I'm going to leave the other colours alone. Okay, so we've done split toning. The next thing we want to do is come down to camera calibration, and this is probably mostly the final part of the image that we can create for a preset pack. The rest of it you can always add in later. Now you can see we're beginning to get there with the image. Again, it's slightly darker than I would have liked. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is come down, if you come down to the camera calibration, and I'm just going to drag the blue primary down to -37. That's just going to back off some of those pinks we added in earlier. Actually, I'm going to put it on -30. I don't want to go too much. So if I turn off the camera calibration, you're going to see it basically brings back those skin tones and makes it slightly less unrealistic. Okay, so you can see we're beginning to get there with the image. We've got like the pink in the sky, we've got those very washed out faded colours. That's basically all you can do. The next thing you can also do, if you want to just add more to your presets, you can put on things like graduated filters. For example, here it would be nice just to drop off the exposure on the front of the image, just so your eyes are drawn to this area here. You can also do it on the sides as well. Okay, so that is the final image, guys. I hope you did enjoy this tutorial. Obviously, it was a very quick preset color grade. You can see if I press the / key here, then that shows us the before and that shows us the after. It is a pretty dramatic change. Now, one thing you will want to do once you've done this is come over to presets, just click on the little plus key, and you can then save the preset. So save it, create a new folder if you want to. I'm going to call the new folder Aspyn Ovard, and just give it a name like that. There you go, that is your presets saved. So if you ever want to use it again, you can just come to here and select it and it will apply it to your images. Okay, so that is it from today's tutorial. I hope you did enjoy it. I hope it was useful. I will create a pack where I'll be selling probably about 5 or 6 of these. If you do want to purchase those, like I mentioned at the beginning, go follow us on Instagram and send us a direct message. We also have a Kim Kardashian preset pack, just an assorted preset pack, a Peter McKinnon preset pack, hopefully coming out. It should already be out by the time this video is uploaded. A Sam Calder preset pack, and we also have a Brandon Wolfall presale pack. So if that's something you guys are interested in, just message us on Instagram. But it'd be great to see you guys around Instagram a little bit. We do have a Twitter page. All of the links are down below in the description. It'd be great if you could follow us there. In the meantime, live long and prosper.